Dances with Robots, a conversation with Katherine Helen Fisher.
Katherine Helen Fisher, who are you, and what do the names and things all the things that Ariane said that you should do?
Okay, will do. My name is Katherine Helen Fisher. I'm so thrilled to be here today. I am a multi-hyphenate artist. I'm a director of emergent technology and dance and new media. I run a production company that I co-founded that's a digital a studio for investigating choreographic forms and media. I'm a dancer, I'm a performer, I'm a mom. I am a labor rights activist. And I am someone that is really inquisitive about where our field is going with all of the exciting developments that are happening with technology. And I'm super excited to bring like a divergent gaze to that, the practice of engaging with those questions.
Great. And you're citing the film Divergent.
Yes.
Of course, yes. Great.
I don't watch movies, Sydney. I only make them.
That's right. I don't do movies. I experience them. Mine.
Yes. Also, my pronouns are she, her, they, and I am a middle-aged white woman with short blonde hair and big gray headphones, and a shirt with snakes on them, on the shirt, snakes. I wore this for you. And I'm sitting in a large living room in beautiful sunny Los Angeles, where I am currently living.
Great. I'm picking up the Edenic vibes today. So this is Sydney Skybetter, professor of dance and emerging technologies at Brown University. I am a white guy with about 10-day-old facial scruff, wearing a blue-collared shirt and black headphones, with a side part and a shit ton of books behind me. I think those are the things. Oh, and my pronouns are he, him, his. I think that's all of the things that Ariane asked us
executive
to do.
producer for Seriously, the conference for research on choreographic interfaces.
Oh God, what did we do?
Thank you, Ariane.
Okay? Yeah.
Text. Awkward. Executive producer, unseen, gives Sydney and Katherine the okay to keep going.
Yeah. So now that we have entered the space, I'm going to ask some questions about you and me.
Okay.
Okay. How did we meet? How did you first meet me? What's the TikTok on that?
You know, it's hard to remember, Sydney, because it's been like 20 plus years. But definitely there was some buzz around your work happening at NYU. I wasn't there when you were there. We didn't cross over. But I was hearing all the buzz. And I was like, who is this dude? I'd like to meet him. And then somehow we met and started talking and hanging out and working together at Dance Now, which was a really formative place for me in my early choreographic pursuits. And I saw you present some work at the Joyce that I adored that was like really just beautifully crafted, and then friends of friends were dancing with you and had great things to say. And so anytime in the dance world, which is tiny and small, and also, you know, people gossip, like when you hear someone's good to work with, then you gravitate towards them. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah. And then there's Sydney, who sort of a counterexample in that. No, and I think Jen Edwards was instrumental. I seem to recall us doing a little bit of work alongside or with you relative to, Finite and Infinite Games.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes. Jen Edwards, who was writing for HuffPost, and a bunch of other people at that time came out to see Finite and Infinite Games, which was a collaborative art project that I did with an amazing filmmaker and an amazing visual artist and fashion people, and it was bringing a bunch of different worlds together, and it was a big production. Some very eclectic, wealthy person came out of the blue to offer me kind of $50,000 to do something. And I was like, I want to make a dance film. And that was my entry point into filmmaking, which was very fabulous and very well produced and was a gorgeous piece, which I've never quite reached again, then going into like self-funding my own work and losing funding and, whatever. That we'll get into that, I guess. But yes, yeah. Jen Edwards wrote a lovely little piece in HuffPost about finite and infinite games, which was a celebration of collaboration.
I remember the word that comes to mind for that particular work is lush. Lush formalism.
Yes! Yeah. I love it.
I should write for the Huffington Post.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, your work. It's good. I like it. So to reiterate the kind of the arc, one of the two arcs of our conversation, then I'm going to get a little bit further into it. I'm imagining this first arc is about like yours and my sort of chemtrails across our respective careers, leading up to and through Circe, and some of our recent conversations. And then I'd like to like circle back to talk about like your undergraduate work at NYU, your graduate work more recently, and kind of like what that says about your career and where that suggests your career is going. But so in terms of our work together, I know we had that through Jennifer Edwards, a kind of facilitative mode, a kind of like producerial collabo. We worked together through Dance Now NYC at Joe's Pub, with you in the choreographic and performance role and me on the producing side. But we've also worked in a number of other capacities. So, for example, I'm thinking of a particular moment that we've talked about in other interviews. I think it was 2015, when you came to Providence and you shot some phenomenal video and some great photos of my work and of Kristen Bell, Jordan Isidore. This was like formulative kind of media, but it was also after you and I had a series of conversations around like dance and media and technology. Like we'd already been kind of talking about this kind of stuff. So I want to like go back into the time machine for a minute to 2015 or so era Katherine Helen Fisher, and I'm curious like your thinking about dance and technology at that time, and also what you recall us talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that time, my creative life partner, Shimmy Boyle, and I had just kind of founded Safety Third Productions. And we did that kind of because I was looking at having been, kind of a successful touring contemporary dancer. I had toured the world for, I don't know, at that point, maybe 15 years with some big dance companies. But I'd had a knee surgery and I was already really aware that like, I know I'm not going to be able to do this forever. And I wanted to like stay in the field of dance and elevate myself to a place where I could sustain a creative practice. And I came to media making through that kind of desire. And so we just started hustling, and we were just getting any and all clients that we could, shooting everything that we could, learning and teaching ourselves filmmaking as we went, learning and teaching ourselves editing and photography and producing, line producing, budgeting. And it was a really exciting time because we were doing some small commercial projects, like little, it was like right when Instagram kind of ads on Instagram for brands started kind of being a thing. And so we were making little bits of money here and there doing that for different brands and using that brand money to go and do kind of like avant-garde art. So we were funding ourselves, and that felt really good, also not to be like looking to external validation and making people that we loved. And that's really an entry point for me in a lot of like relationships, sustaining collaborative relationships in my work and in my life is just like the heat of gravitating towards someone creatively and like wanting to know them and like wanting to take a picture of them and have them kind of like be a muse or have their energy, influence my work. And I love that part of curating energies. And I think that's a big part of why I like to make work and how I like make sense of like the astounding instability of the world is through these interpersonal connections and like that community. So that's what was going on when I came up to Providence. I was hustling and I saw that you were like moving and shaking, and I wanted to take pictures of you and the people that you were working with. And then we had this awesome dinner party that you organized where a bunch of nerds kind of sat around, and I'm sure there was some drinking and eating involved. And that's where I met Katie Kwan, who has become a dear friend. And I worked with her. I was working with her as a dancer on some like a shoe commercial. She ran through the streets of Bushwick for me in a shoe commercial, and now she's like almost Dr. Katie Kwan, killing it with making robots dance. So it's so fun to like see the trajectory of people's work and to like be a part of that narrative.
Totally. So in terms of the kitchen clatch, so I think by that point we had worked together in a dance media capacity, like a dance film, dance marketing kind of capacity. I know I trusted you and Jimmy to be like very present for like the state of the art of like media capture.
Yes.
And I was particularly interested in y'all's expertise for how like media capture, bodily capture, motion capture, like how these notions or technologies were shifting. And it seems like y'all already had like expertise squarely in that action. So bringing you in relation to people who were more on the like speculative end of that seemed like a fruitful juxtaposition. But I'm super curious what, if anything, you remember from that drinky gathering. I'll say like my memory's a little fuzzy. I think that's the tequila. But I'm curious like what, like if you remember like a mood or particular people, like you already mentioned Katie, like I'm curious like what dynamics do you remember being in play?
I mean, I just remember there being a really congenial mood and like a very generous like vibe of sharing ideas and information, and like people kind of like talking over one another and shouting ideas. And also like I as in preparing for this meeting, for this talk, I was like thinking back, like I grew up in Baltimore, and I got my first computer when I was 23. And I am not like a digital native. All this stuff was totally new to me. And so I also felt maybe a little bit intimidated being in the room with some people being like, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Like, I don't know if we were talking about like Discord or like, I was just like, I have no idea, but I'm going to say yes and be like, discover a new world here. So it was cool to be thrown in that pile of people.
Yeah. I think that's my recollection. Excuse me. I get choked up talking about our ancient past. No, I mean that's about the kind of affective layer that I remember too. It's like it was a little shouty and a lot of not understanding each other, but understanding each other well enough, like minimum viable understanding.
Yeah. And I think it's a really great place to start the collaborative processes, like breaking bread, drinking, throwing down, because you have to trust one another and love one another before you can work together. Or that's the best way, Yeah.
So then this wasn't the only time we've worked together in like very like emergent dance tech kind of contexts. I'm thinking here of the Cunningham Centennial, the Akron moment.
Yes.
Did we have any other kind of sizable collabos between roughly 2015 and I guess it was 18, 19 when we were in Akron together? I mean, I know we were still circling, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that like for me, I know we already mentioned Dance Now, but it was really meaningful for me. Like I successfully did a projection mapping piece at Dance Now, and I rented a like 10K projector, which I had hauled into Dance Now, and I think you were the only one who kind of really understood what I was asking for and the technical constraints of it and the time needed to do it appropriately. Like, so it was fun to have you like grease the wheels producerially for me to make that happen, because it was really, really ambitious, and I don't think it really would have come to fruition without you gently, opening space.
Here for it. I mean, and we're going to return to this. I mean, one of the conversations we're going to actually be having with Katie Kwan actually is about like the difficulty in like producing this work in dance spaces.
I mean,
and yeah, it's like And so bringing in like projectors, like that's hard. It's hard enough, let alone like the robots. But so then to fast forward to Akron, because I know that we were sort of on different sides of this apparatus. Like I and the CRC team were on the kind of the facilitative end. You were performing. Can you talk to us about like how you got involved in the Centennial and what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure who the good people that got me involved with the Centennial. Well, probably Christy Edmonds and you. I'm not sure who recommended me or put my name in the ring. I don't know how I got in there, because really it was like the most kind of visible contemporary dancers of our scene that were invited to do it. So I was like, how am I in here? I don't know why, but I was thrilled. And also as someone who kind of frankly despised the work of Merce Cunningham on my own body, loved to see it on stage, but despised actually doing it with my body. And then getting the invitation to do that, to dance at the Centennial. And then, like my dancer ego, of course, stepped in, and I was like, well, now I have to master the Cunningham technique, which I studied like diligently for a year and then loved it. And also dancing with Andrea Weber and Silas and Rashawn, and getting the sensuality and the lushness and the deepness of their practice and understanding of that material was just such a huge gift, and also so mind-opening to me, like what the Trust is doing with the legacy of Merce's work. It's like one of the only people who, like, I feel like Cunningham technique has been revitalized and all the young people want to do it again, and so much exciting stuff happening there. And then the LA iteration of the Centennial, we got to work with the amazing visual artist Jennifer Steinkamp, who designed the decor. And I think she's working, I don't know if she's working in Unreal Engine but that kind of harkened back to my experience with C. Finley, who did the geometric designs of Finite and Infinite Games. And there's always been something about like visual interaction with somatic practice that it's super hot for me, and I want it in my life in any way I can possibly have it. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how I got involved with the Centennial. And then getting to go to Akron was fascinating, and everything that's happening there is just what Christy's doing there is like, I want to go back all the time. But I think also at that point in time in my practice, which is different than now, I was very product, like I was like, what are we making? Like, what are we producing? Like, what's the shiny thing that I can show when I walk out of this and say, here? And so I was definitely coming at those days in Akron with that, like, kind of, I want to say supremacist mindset of like, let's make something awesome. And instead, it really became us talking about, like, how do you make something? Like, what is successful? Is failure success? Can failure be success? Like, how do we communicate across practice?
So this was the National Center for, I always mess up this acronym, National Choreographic Center at the University of Akron?
Yep.
Ariane, to both Sydney and Katherine, were you interested in tech collaborations for financial purposes, creative purposes, or both?
Do you want to go first?
Me? Well, I mean, when I think about that question, I think about, like, a lot of the choices that I made were kind of born of the scarcity in our industry. And I was always trying to find a way to fit a way to carve out some sort of, backdoor solution to being able to sustain my creative practice. And I was just another, 5 foot, like, white chick that was, in this field of a lot of people doing that. Like, every time I would submit my work to agencies for representation, I would always get, well, you're just like this person and this person and this person and this person that we already represent. So for me, getting into emergent technologies was, one, about owning my power and framing my own talent in a way that I was like, no, it's my foot that I want you to look at, not my collarbone. And being able to monetize my own image and to kind of delight in the sensual, like the feminized sensual experience that I was having and with authorship. And it was also about trying to sustain my practice and develop skills that I could get paid to do, which, you know, dancing is not remunerated very handsomely. So yeah, I was always hoping to develop this other set of skills that I could parlay into, you know, something.
Like money.
Like, yes. Something that would allow me to one day stop working and retire.
When you figure that out, let me know.
Yes, will do.
Yeah, no, so I had a very similar experience. So in, again, 2014, 2015, we were just coming out of a particular kind of recessionary moment. There were all of these new technologies coming on. Like, this was right after, I think, that the Kinect had been out for a little while and people were hacking the hell out of that. It seemed like body-centered technologies were emerging at scale in a way that I'd never observed before. And it felt like, I mean, one of my opening questions for that gathering was, the kitchen table gathering was like, whose job is it to choreograph the Apple Watch? Whose job is it to choreograph the Nest smoke alarm? Somebody choreographed those things. Whose job was that? Who got paid to do that? Was it a dancer? Was it a choreographer? Because maybe it should be. And it wasn't clear to me that there was any kind of labor market for dancerly expertise in emerging technology at that time. I think now there's any number of examples of dancers and choreographers who are deeply invested and embedded in emerging technological research in corporations and in universities. And this says something more about my network than like dancers not having jobs in tech. But like in 2015, I didn't know who those people were or where they were hiding. My hope for this gathering was that we'd be able to articulate some shared like problem statements that end with dancers getting jobs, dancers getting paid really well to address technical and technological problems. It feels like parts of that future have come to fruition. Not all of it. And certainly the ethics of that remain a little squishy. But it feels like I know more dancers in tech now than ever before. Yeah. Somebody pay me to choreograph a thermostat. Right. So then to transition us back in, can you remind me... when the TikTok on maternity and graduate school? When did you have the wee bab? Was that before graduate school? Was that in graduate school? I can't quite recall.
Okay, here's how it went down. We did the Cunningham Centennial. I decided that I have this motto that like I'll try anything once, and so I decided to have a baby.
Totally. And that thing was unprotected sexual intercourse.
Yes. No, I was really intentional about planning it out, Sydney.
I'm sure.
The pandemic hit, and I had the baby May 2020, Frankie, my beautiful baby girl. And right when I had her, I was like, oh my God, the commissions that I have lined up are all canceled. And there's no way I'm going to get any creative work done with this baby and with a worldwide pandemic. And I was like, this is the perfect time to go to graduate school. So
cue the music to curb your enthusiasm.
Yeah. So I had fully not applied to any graduate schools, and it was like, at this point, probably around August, and I sent out a bunch of emails and hastily called people at a various bunch of institutions, and I was like, can anyone take me? Please take me. And I was lucky enough to get John Jaspers on the phone, who is an amazing creator and has subsequently become my mentor and was my academic advisor at Sarah Lawrence, where I recently earned my master's degree. And he was like, I think we can make this work. So John, I studied fully remotely for 1 year with my newborn baby on my breast on Zoom calls for 8 hours a day, and dancing in my parent-in-law's living room next to the very stinky trash, And we did a crazy pandemic thing where, so I recently earned my master's degree, and it was really a very challenging endeavor. But I had always thought about going into higher ed. And also I just wanted to like refocus my practice because I had been working commercially for so long and had been working on other people's projects a lot. Like people would hire me to come in and say, I want to make a film like this, and these are all the constraints, and I would put together a budget and make it all happen. But I was less creating works that were like truly, I feel like, about the authorship of the topics that I really wanted to research. So I got to do all that cool stuff in graduate school, and what a privilege that was.
Can you talk a little bit more about like, what the degree is and what it like, what it's of, what it sort of matters, like what are the stakes for a graduate degree in dance performance and choreography and dance?
I mean,
like what is the...
my degree is just in dance, and when John was like, maybe you can come and work on your media stuff here, he was like, I have to be honest with you, I'm not excited by it, I don't gravitate towards it, I don't understand it, I don't know why we have to have it. And I was like, oh yeah, you need me. But I feel like also as an educator, it really opened my mind up to like how to listen again and how to be a student again. And as someone who had very strong ideas about myself as an artist, I had to kind of like step back and down a bit and eat a little bit of humble pie. And so, yeah, it was delicious. Really, yeah, it was delicious. But it was interesting because, I've been making a lot of dance films, and I had also been doing like live, I'd done quite a few projection mapping projects. But what I did at Sarah Lawrence is I started researching interactive, participatory new media for performance environments. And it's a really niche thing that I got into. Part of that was because the Bessie Theater at Sarah Lawrence had just gotten these 2 new beautiful projectors. And I started working with Touch Designer, this node-based program that uses Python code to get different media to talk to one another. It can create generative media. And so I got into kind of like this idea of Liveness Plus that you guys are talking about. And I'm really, really excited about this in terms of its ramifications of how it can impact our field. And touring virtually, democratizing the form and getting it out to a bunch of different audiences that might have been marginalized or not have access to our form. And plus it's just sexy and cool, which is,
I was about to ask you the why question. Before answer, sexy and cool.
Yes.
So can you juxtapose for me, like we both did our bachelor's at NYU Tisch School for Dance. Yes. And you got this graduate degree from Sarah Lawrence. Can you compare and contrast those pedagogic experiences? Like one is very conservatory. The other is like very fluffy and John Jaspersy and ethereal, maybe, or maybe I'm just thinking stereotypically. But I'm curious, like NYU, Sarah Lawrence, how do those work in terms of your training?
Yeah, I mean, I loved my time at Tisch. Like, I feel like at Tisch, I was kind of like I mean. When I was at Tisch, Faye Driscoll was there. Kyle Abraham was there right after me. Like, Johannes Wieland was there. I met Johannes there, and I danced with him. Like, I mean, these are kind of people who I considered consider legends. And I love that we had all these resources that it was just like, if you want to like smoke a bong in your room, you can. But if you want to go into the theater and work until 2 a.m. in the morning, or like break into the sound design room and create like your own version of like an Aphex Twin track, you can. And I just happened to like be super motivated and found that it was an environment that I like really was able to like excel at. And I had a job, like I was dancing at the Joyce my senior year, my last year there. So it worked out well for me. Sarah Lawrence was harder. I mean, I think, that they write a lot. It's very theory. There's a lot of theory. There's a lot of questioning why we do things and how we do things. There's a lot of as a dyslexic, again, like I had to write a 100-page research paper. I had to learn how to do those damn citations. Like, it all hurt. It all felt like purification by fire. But I do feel like a more thoughtful artist, having kind of had to answer difficult questions about what I'm doing and why. And it made me confront a lot of things about my past and my why I was drawn to certain material, and like why I made certain choices that was difficult to face. But now that I understand more about it, it was like good therapy, good psychodynamic therapy.
Well, I feel like we both went to the same and also very different schools.
Yes.
And I'm going to resist the temptation, Ariane, to dig more into that, like the difference between NYU when you were there and when I was there, because it feels like a very different. Like, I was there like in the right emergent post 9/11 moment, which I think was very contractive. Wow. So like Kyle had graduated, Johannes was graduating, and there were no jobs. Anyway, that's a conversation for a deep belt of scotch, not on podcast time, Ariane. Sorry. I want to then go to the postgraduate moment. So you've graduated with this elite degree in dance, and then what? Like, what do you do with that degree? How does that degree? How is it activating? How is it enabling? How is it affording or disaffording?
Well, when I graduated from Tisch, I was heavily in student loan debt. And 9/11 happened. I lost my uncle in 9/11. I saw the towers fall with my own eyes. I lived in the acrid smoke, and I was bartending, not dancing, and trying to find myself and living with very tight margins in a very dangerous area of Brooklyn, where I had an amazing rent-controlled apartment, and slowly I started freelancing and actually made choreographed a piece about my uncle that showed at Dance Now. I was auditioning for companies and I couldn't get a dance job. And then people saw me do that work that I designed for myself, that I choreographed for myself. And all of a sudden I got all these major dance job offers. And then started my touring career as a professional dancer with Momix. And then, and a bunch of other people who I could list if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Yes, please. No, I don't think I knew that you started with Momix, actually. I didn't.
Yeah, that was my first. I worked with Momix for 6 years, off and on, touring the world, 6 to 8 shows a week. We were in Madrid and Barcelona and Melbourne and Sydney and Italy every summer with huge signing autographs. Oh, it was amazing. But also, I had come from this downtown dance training, and all of a sudden I was writhing around the stage with a pool flotation device that looked like a snake in see-through netting. And so
we're back at snakes.
Yes. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was making enough money to pay my rent, and I was a working artist, and I felt extremely proud of that. Yeah.
And so, how does that compare? That you've already alluded in a number of instances to the kind of hustle, the kind of plural, the ways and means of making a career.
Yeah.
And that this is not a linear path. This is something that's always distributed and requires some executive function to navigate. But I'm curious how then graduating with the graduate degree was, right?
Yes,
so you're graduating into the COVID mire. You have a young child.
Yes.
What does that mean for your career? What's next? If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to answer that starting by saying I am manifesting in every way, shape, and form I can. I am burning intention candles. I am just woo-wooing out over here in Los Angeles. But no, it's been extremely challenging. I think becoming a mom, becoming a middle-aged performer, director, I felt completely erased in the field. I've gotten almost no foundational support from my work, despite having applied for it year in, year out. I've done a ton of work, but it never seems to add up to the sort of recognition that I'm after to to sustain my practice. But then again, I think, you talk to people and it's like we're kind of all feel like we're in the same boat a lot. So I've been really focusing on like mutual care and community, and, I don't have any doubt about myself as a creator or a director. Like, I know I am powerful. I know I can move large groups of people and accomplish big ideas. I know I'm effective, but I'm still really struggling with like how to message that. And also, I think having experienced some modicum of success in my career as a dancer, I've always tried to apply those same things that made me successful, which is like work harder, work longer, work more, keep going. And now at 43, I'm questioning that too. And like, where is there time for rest, and where is there time for sorrow, and where is there time for healing, and how can I weave those things into my creative practice and center my practice in gratitude rather than lack. But yes, so basically I'm looking for work. Anyone out there listening to this? KatherineHelenFisher.com. And I'm trying to get work teaching. And I just directed an event featuring immersive, interactive emergent tech for performance at a virtual production studio here in Los Angeles, and 400 people came. And like, people came up. I've been going around Los Angeles and people are recognizing me, being like, "Did you do that?" And I'm like, yes, I did. Like, it was so awesome. And I did that on a $1,500 emergency grant from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts. So actually, that's the one foundation who's shown up for me. But yes, $1,500. Thank you to all the amazing artists and collaborators who showed up and came out. But like, yeah, I'm looking at these big ideas and big structures, and I'm like, how can I get this sold? How can I monetize it? How can I give back to my community and keep the research going?
Yeah. So I'm struck by your languaging of recognition as a sustainability tactic.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, right. So it's not like recognition because like,
no,
ego diva. It's like recognition begets the money, which begets the bills getting paid, begets the work being feasible.
Absolutely. Yes.
Do I have that right? Like,
totally. 100%. 100%. Yes. That's it.
So then, given your work, again, in the interdisciplines, right? Because like you have dance chops and a ferocious choreographic career, and also you are still extending outward past what a conventional reading of choreography or dance is, right? So like you're in the kind of the in between. And this is something I read in your career for now several decades. Like you exist and thrive in these in-between states, even as you are recognized maybe primarily as a dancer or primarily as a choreographer. But I'm curious about like this relationship between like recognition and legibility.
Yes.
And how you navigate this, or how you've again been empowered by your ability to drift tactically across disciplines, or how that's been frustrating or disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like that liminality, like that is my strong point, and I like to fit into fit into the cracks, and I think that's very, I don't know, maybe this doesn't make sense, but I feel like I identify that as being a really, like, what someone who's been socialized as a female kind of does, right? And I think sometimes women artists can get dinged for that, because it's not like, this is the clear idea, right? It's kind of, it's more porous and more flexible, and but I love it, and it's beautiful. I love that practice of like, filling need, or I love that about working with new choreographic structures, or emergent tech stuff. It's like, what is this need? Like, how can we make it work? And I love that the ego kind of vanishes in that creative process, where you're just like, let's get it done. We're working as a team. It's iterative. Like, it's test and learn. It's problem solving. It's not like, this is my brilliant genius creator idea.
So that was like the melody line from like Nakoi Katsi or something. Yeah.
Yes. This is why I never made it on Broadway, Sydney.
This is my brilliant idea. This is my brilliant idea. This is my brilliant idea.
I do.
Oh my God. Ariane shut us down. So what does this say about hope? So like I'm thinking, like you've indicated where you're at in the career moment. You're looking for a particular kind of recognition, particular kind of work. I'm curious, like, what then is your intention for yourself, and what does that intention say for the field that you hope to inhabit, right? So, like, the Circe kitchen gathering, whatever, is like one of the. I'll give myself like one utopian gesture every year. And that was like my gesture that year, right? Like this idea that like we could come together across disciplines to explore choreographic expertise relative to emerging technologies. Yeah. But I read your career and your present interests as gesturing towards a dance community still to come. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about like that future imagining, like how you imagine your career unfolding in the next 5, 10, 15 years, and what that maybe says about the community you would manifest or enter into.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sydney. I mean, I think that a lot of my work is centering around mentorship and thinking back and looking back to the mentors that I had that were really formative for me. And I think like when you've spent your life's work in the field and developing this knowledge, part of it is about sharing that and giving back to younger artists. And so I do feel like there's a huge part of my practice that is curatorial right now, like bringing other people's great ideas that I see that may not be as like recognized or have the light on them, and shining the light on them, and then providing platforms for people to have. I think also, like, as with all media, the people who control media can control public discourse. So putting the hands, understanding how to work technology and how to operate these framing devices is a really important part of the narrative and the conversation. And I think that putting that skill into hands of people who are marginalized is important. And I want to continue that kind of teaching, learning thing for myself as well, because that's why I wanted to learn, because I wanted to be able to frame my own story. So I'm really excited about that, and taking like the experimental arts, the avant-garde, into like this new terrain, which is global and can reach a lot of people. Yeah, that's my utopian dream. And also just providing like space and time for collaborators to come together. I think the more I realize, like, well, I may not get a Guggenheim, and that's okay, but like I have to have my community. Like, we have to have each other. That's what this is about. And when I look back at like groups of artists, like when you look at the people who were working in Soho in the 70s that like Bob and Lucinda and Phil came out of, and like, or you look at Warhol and his people, or throughout time, when people have built communities where they can feel seen and understood, that's like, I want to be a part of that.
So I want to digress for just a moment. We got a note from Ariane in the chat. And I think this, I take this for granted myself now too. I'm a parent of two beautiful troglodytes. I have a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old, and having children fundamentally changed not just like what kind of dance or choreography or professional stuff is possible, but like it really does reorient oneself, or it can reorient oneself relative to like what matters.
Yeah.
And I remember, actually, I think we have this advisor. I think we both worked with Kay Cummings. Yeah. Yes. So Kay Cummings taught acting and choreography and functionally interdisciplinary collaboration at NYU Tisch. And she recently passed away. But something that she said to me that haunted me as a young dancer choreographer, and that I think about still, is just like I couldn't fathom as a young, successful, hot dancer person, like why anybody would ever leave New York. Right? Why anybody would ever not be preoccupied with getting their work seen at the Joyce Theater or the Kennedy Center or something.
Right.
And as a parent, I was like, why the would I live in New York? Why the hell would I be preoccupied with getting my work seen at these venues? That just does not compute.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about, like, functionally, like, how parenting works, right?
Yeah.
Like, how parenting is work and how that labor interfaced or not with your creative practice.
Yeah. I mean, I think my experience of being a parent is very much like having to prioritize what I work on, because I can't just work all the time anymore. There's another being that's depending on me that I have to create food for and shop for and wipe their butt and hold them when they're afraid at night and bathe them. And I think it puts you a little bit more in the present moment, which but it also just brings new, like, I've never been so tired in my life. I'm just deeply tired at my core. But that also means that I have less, I think more flexibility, more understanding. I don't think that I definitely have had people be like, well, if you really were serious about your career, you wouldn't have become a mom, and I think that's the narrative that a lot of people get. And I don't have any judgment about people who decide not to have kids at all. Like, I get it. I totally get it. I do feel like my productivity has, like, decreased in terms of, like, what I'm able to, like, push out. But I just think that being kind and communicative and understanding is partly wrapped up in my mothering, and knowing that those things are, like, kind of preeminently important, even more so than, like, how something is received, is kind of what it's brought to my practice.
Yeah. That last question from Ariane. What are you working on? What are you thinking about right now?
Ooh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, so I'm still workshopping this evening length interactive dance and new media thing that I've been making for a while. That's called Liminal Collective. And one of the things that I've been working on this for a while, which is I take photographs during a live performance of both dancers and audience, and I project them live, right? So you get this experience of, like, near past and near present. It's really like an expansive feeling. And then people can also look at themselves, and a lot of times they're looking at themselves through the mediation of their phone. So they're taking a selfie of them, their real self, and the image that was just taken 2 minutes beforehand. I'm really geeking out about this. And, like, photographic forms in general are just a huge part of my practice. But what I've recently been doing is working with Chelsea Cocking, who's at MIT right now, who's using facial recognition software to create in open frameworks these really beautiful kind of matrix of designs of faces, and we figured out how to do that live. So I take the picture live, it goes through all the things, and it comes out kind of like in a Chuck Close styled sort of abstraction of a face. And it's taking this kind of, like, some would say nefarious technology and making something beautiful with it. So I'm super excited to continue developing that. And, like, I want to animate the design of the faces. And there's just something about portraiture, live portraiture, that I'm really drawn to in performance. So I'm working on that. And then Shimmy and I are Shimmy's working on a bunch of AI stuff that's super cool. Like, he's got this product that he's developing called Party AI with Safety Third, where it's basically like an AI that you can type in at a party that's like a console, and it's really fun. It's basically what everyone's playing around with AI, but with drinking. And we're working on doing mocap with cameras, so you don't need a whole suit anymore, and another AI interface that's allowing real-time mocap, working with avatars, so that, like, you can be dancing with movement that you're generating, and your identity that you're seeing projected in front of you on a screen can be shifting or oscillating. So you can be 6 feet tall, or an infant, or a woman, or a man, or an old, I think there's something about the moment that we're in where like we can become our avatars, right? We can change who we are virtually, and that can be hyper real for our experience. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. So asking questions about identity and gender and class and all these things, and how we can like oscillate between these experiences through technology is really exciting to me.
Nailed it. A for the day. So Kate, what are you thinking about these days?
Well, thanks for asking that, Sydney. I'm thinking a lot about sustainability in cultural production, and restructuring timelines to center care and process. And I'm thinking about how I pay my rent, how I can get my collaborators to be taken care of. I think the fear and the state of being kind of unable to sustainably like keep your life going is not conducive to good work. And so, especially when it comes to the way that art is funded and artists are remunerated, I think that we as artists have to keep pushing and challenging the organizations with whom we work to do better. Because so often the rates of remuneration that are being offered, even if it's great experience and great FaceTime and great, maybe you can parlay that into something in the future, it's not sustainable, and we cannot undercut one another by a rush to the bottom. And also when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the field, like we have to think about who can take these jobs that are not paying enough, that are not paying sustainable rates. So that's a big part of my practice. And I think it's so hard to like speak to truth to power, especially when someone's like, I have this money for you, to say like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not enough. But I think if we kind of work collectively, we can make a difference. A lot in my graduate studies, I was reading this book, amazing book, Work Won't Love You Back by Susan Jaffe. And you know, girl, work will not love you back. Like, you have to love yourself and the people that you're making work with, and that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Brown University's Department of Theater Arts and Performance Studies Conference for Research on Choreographic Interfaces, thanks to Marshall Woods Lectureships Foundation of Fine Arts, the Brown Arts Initiative, and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for their generous support of this project. DWR, an interview with Katherine Helen Fisher. Thank you to Katherine Helen Fisher for spending time nerding out with us. For more info, visit KatherineHelenFisher.com. The Circe team: Sydney Skybetter, Circe founder; Ariane, Michaud, executive producer; Kate Gao, archivist and producer. Dances with Robots team: Laurel Lawson, accessibility consultant; Megan Hall, podcasting consultant; Kamala Sankaram, music commission; Jim Moses, sound editor; Rishika Kartik, student associate. Thank you to TAPS at Brown University: Chris Reddyhan, academic department manager; Alex Nurkin, academic events and facilities manager; Brianne Shaw, communications and audience services manager. Thank you to the Brown Arts Initiative at Brown University: Kira Del Sesto, Sophia LaCava Bohannon, Peter Chanot, Chuan Ju, Nix Bennett, and a huge thank you to Rebecca Rex in the Office of Corporate and Foundation Relations. Thank you to the OnTap podcast for supporting early ideas around this project, and Panel Camp for sending over valuable resources. More info at ontappod.com. More on Circe at https://choreographicinterfaces.org/. Listen to our podcast, Dances with Robots, www.danceswithrobots.org.